Hello all my crafty people and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking all about presser feet for our sewing machine. And the feet that I'm going to be working with today are for my Janome Skyline S9. But what's nice about presser feet is that the way that they look is pretty much universal. But it does really depend what brand and what model of machine you have, because there are different sizes to the feet and things like that for you. So like my Janome can do up to 9 millimeters. So you can see that this little bar here, make sure this is zoomed in, this little bar here is really wide. On a smaller machine, this bar here would be smaller. And on certain brands, you have to snap it on up or snap it on through the front and things like that. So it is very important to know the make and the model of your sewing machine in case you ever need to buy an additional presser foot that maybe you didn't come with, or perhaps replace one that you've lost or damaged. Okay, so to kind of get started here, I have my main foot here. Now you're going to notice that this piece is what is normally on the sewing machine itself. So usually it sits on the machine like this. Here's your opening right here where you would screw it into the machine. And then you'll notice on here there's this black piece. That allows me to release the foot, like so. I don't know if y'all can see that. It's having a hard time zooming. So that's what that black thing does in the back. And this is known as a snap-on foot because when you're ready to change it, you just snap it on. Now when it's on the machine, it's a little bit trickier to kind of just make sure you get it lined up. So you want to make sure it's lined up. You can see there's the arch. There's that bar. And that's where it snaps into place. Okay, so that's what we call the ankle, right? So that makes sense. Here we have our ankle, and then we have our foot. Our foot attaches to the ankle. Now, this foot here, this is an A foot. On other brands like Baby Lock and Brother that I know for sure, it's going to be a J foot, but it's actually going to look exactly the same. The only difference would be the size, the overall width of the foot. Because again, on smaller model machines, they're not going to be able to do as wide of a stitch. Thus, the foot would be smaller. But this is sort of our general all-purpose foot. This is our straight stitch, our zigzag foot. You can technically use this for decorative stitches and things like that. You can use it for almost any non-specialty stitch, like lettering and things like that. But really, it's most ideal for straight stitching and a basic zigzag. So straight stitching, when you're doing like hems and bulky things, there's this button here. So when this is on the machine, and like as you're approaching a large seam, you would just push this button in, and it'll help you go over that hump. Okay, so that's our all-purpose foot. Every machine will come with one. That's a standard foot to have on every sewing machine, especially a new sewing machine. So the next foot I want to talk about, for Janome specifically, they call it the F and the F2 foot. Again, other brands are going to have different letters for these feet, but in general, they look like this. You're going to notice these are clear feet. And this particular one is an open toe. So see how there's just one wide opening, and then this one has this. These are generally designed for our decorative stitches. On the Janome itself, I will include a shot here of the screen. It shows you what foot you should be using for a certain stitch. So if you have a computerized machine with a screen like my Janome, in general, it's going to tell you what foot you want to be using. Usually machines with a digital screen will show you as well. So this one is ideal for just like some of your decorative stitches. You get more into this for like some satin stitches, blanket stitches, and they're just kind of designed, you notice on the bottom here, that are designed to glide over fabric, because these types of stitches tend to move around a lot more and things like that. So that's their decorative stitch, applique, and lettering feet. Okay. Next we have a zipper foot. And you'll notice that this one's kind of weird. It's really skinny. And there's a center, there's a left and a right. Some zipper feet are super wide. And so what that does is on the super wide ones, you basically have a left or a right option. So on the other style ones, you might be able to put the ankle on this side or on this side of the foot, because you have one big long bar. This one I like because it's more streamlined. This is a really good foot if you're going to be doing invisible zippers and you don't want to buy an invisible zipper foot, because this one is so small, you're really able to get really close to the teeth of the zipper foot. To the zipper itself, to the invisible zipper. But yeah, that's a zipper foot. That's another standard one. So your all-purpose foot and your zipper foot would be two that are standard with most sewing machines. Depending on what brand, depending on what level of model, this is also sometimes a standard foot and, clear foot. Janome specifically loves to give presser feet and accessories with their machines, especially if you're buying a machine from like a dealer. Those level of models that Janome carries, they are like, here you go, here's every foot we make. So it's a really great value in my opinion. Okay, so next up, I'm going to try and do some of the utility feet, all the utility feet first, that come pretty standard. So next up we have this one here. This is a rolled hem foot. So you can see there's like this cone. And this works by setting it on your machine and feeding the fabric through. And it is a little bit tricky to use, especially with a slippery fabric. This is, it's very limited in what size you can do. I think Janome might have different size rolled hem feet that you could purchase. There's also like bias binder feet and things like that. Really, if you're going to do a lot of rolled hems, like if you're going to get into doing garments, like make your whole outfit or make all of your kids' clothes, I might suggest having a serger in the sewing room. It'll make rolled hems a lot easier. But this is really good in a pinch. I used it with my mallow dress that I did for so long. So that's a rolled hem foot. And it is usually a pretty standard foot and with most sewing machines. Next up, we have our Overcast foot. And this one definitely looks really weird. And you definitely have to have the right stitch when you're using this foot, because you will break a needle. It looks weird because of the nature of an overcast seam. So you can see, you just kind of butt your fabric up here. And then basically what these bars are for are to support the stitch as it's on the edge of the fabric. Because most of the, 99% of sewing, you're going to be on 2 layers of fabric. Except for, the rolled hem and an overcast. And so you need to have those specific feet in order to support the thread and the fabric better. So yeah, this is the overcast foot. This is really great for finishing off raw edges of fabric. And again, if you're going to really do a lot of these types of stitches, if you're going to do a lot of garment sewing, you really want to make your whole closet by hand, I really recommend getting a serger. It'll make these 2 feet obsolete with your sewing machine, but trust me, it's a lot easier on a professional machine. Okay. This is our stitch in the ditch foot. You can see it has this markings in it to help it glide over a little bit better. I don't really use this one. You could for like straight line quilting and things like that. There's also other types of like overcast seams that you can use this foot with. This is our hit or miss, whether or not it would be included with your sewing machine. It's not one that people tend to go towards too often. Okay, next up we have our button sewing foot. So if you want to sew a button on, you use this foot. And you can see it has 2 different bars just to make it easier to position the foot on whichever style button you have, like if you have a small one or a large one. I usually just sew my buttons on by hand. I mean, with the button sewing foot, you still have to be careful where your needle is in the holes. You have to double check it and this and that. And I personally prefer to just hand sew my buttons. Okay, so I was going to show y'all my buttonhole foot next, but I can't find it. That sucks. I have no idea where it is. So, you know, hopefully by the time I edit this video, maybe I'll find it and I can include it. But a general foot that you would usually get with most sewing machines is going to be a 1-step buttonhole foot. And for Janome, I believe it's buttonhole foot R. Okay, so I'm missing that. Anyway, so next up I'm going to do what would be included with the Janome. Actually, I don't want to go into that yet. So the next foot is going to be the O foot. This is a 1/4 inch foot. And you can see there's this black piece of metal that comes down on this side. And this is great for quilters especially because we always use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it just, you can see here, you're going to be able to adjust your needle position a little bit. But usually I just pick the 1/4 inch stitch with my 1/4 inch foot on. And when you run the fabric through here, you can see that it helps prevent your fabric from slipping over to the right hand side. I also like it because it is nice and wide. You know, it does have to do with the model machine I have, but it is really nice that it's nice and wide. I feel like you get a lot of fabric coverage with this foot, and it's nice and smooth on the bottom. So it really helps feed the fabric through evenly. This is not usually included with a lot of sewing machines, especially like mid-level and below. But again, it really depends on the brand and what model you go into. There are like quilters editions of sewing machines, and so those will always include the presser feet that quilters use the most. But if you are a quilter or you're going to be doing a lot of 1/4 inch seams, I highly recommend a 1/4 inch foot. Okay, so with that, again with quilting, here is a free motion quilting foot. This is also known as a darning foot. Darning is when you have like a hole in your pants, and instead of putting just a patch over it, you know, if it's small enough, it's a small enough rip or something like that, you can actually just go back and forth with thread, and that'll help you kind of close that hole up and things like that. But really, we use this for free motion quilting. You'll notice that it's spring action, so that means that the foot kind of hops up and down as you're quilting, which is really nice. It makes it easy to go over all those humps and bumps and things like that. If you've ever seen any of my Quilt With Me videos, you'll notice that this is the foot I always use. I like it because it's clear, it's really easy to see what I'm working with, and it's spring action, so if you know how to move the fabric just right, you'll be able to get over any of those thick seams in your quilts. Next up, we have, Janome calls this an Accu-feed foot, so like an accurate feed. It's also really well known as a walking foot. Now, all the presser feet I've already shown you on any other brand are going to look extremely familiar, very similar. There's not going to be too many differences. With this foot here, with the Accu-feed foot, you're going to notice right away there's some major differences compared to other walking feet that are out there for other brands. It's actually one of the reasons why I like Janome, because of their Accu-feed foot. If you're going to be doing straight line quilting, you want a walking foot that's powerful, but not bulky. And so many other brands have such a bulky walking foot. And it's like, I don't want this giant foot on there. I want to be able to see what I'm doing. I want to be able to see what I'm working on. This is great if you're going to do, jeans, or anytime you're working with a thicker fabric or something like that. So the way that it works is this little hook hooks into the back of the machine. So let me grab my other ankle so you can see the difference here. So you can see this is our normal ankle. This is how it normally sits. But then in addition, it has this hook. And so it moves in tandem with the feed dogs on the bottom, and those little teeth help to pull all your material back. And I like this one because one, the teeth are smaller, so it actually makes it easier when working with certain types of fabrics because they're not like these big, giant, like plastic teeth things that are in the way. The way that it hooks into the back of the machine, it's more in line with how the feed dogs are moving, because most other style walking feet have this like big, giant claw that has to go over the needle bar. And so it's moving with the needle, not necessarily the feed dogs. And so I feel like this is more true to the motion of how your fabric's getting fed through the machine. I also like it because these, what they call a sole, S-O-L-E, is interchangeable. So you notice here, this looks kind of like our J foot. Looks really similar to our A foot. See, I work with other machines sometimes. So it's like our basic all-purpose one. And here is a 1/4 inch one. This is my favorite part about the machine, that I can actually have a 1/4 inch foot while using an Accu-feed foot. So this is really great. Sorry, I'm doing this on camera, so it's kind of hard to see. Okay, here we go. So you just kind of hold on. I got to move up a little bit here. Okay. It's usually not this difficult. It's just because I'm filming it. Okay, so you notice there's like little pegs here, and they just kind of click into the side there. So I like the fact that I can have a 1/4 inch foot while using my walking foot. So it really just makes sure that everything's going to go in there exactly the way I want it. I really like this when I'm doing anything on the bias. So anytime I'm doing like half square triangles or corner to corner, or, one side to the other side, whatever it may be, I really like having this foot on there, because it means that my little square isn't going to go slip sliding around, and I get a really nice, true 1/4 inch seam. So I really like that one. And then there is also an open toe sole that, just depends on what stitch you're doing. There is a setting on the Janome that you can tell that you're using the Accu-feed foot, and it'll actually block you from doing certain stitches because it's not recommended. But, I use this one for a decorative stitch that I do in my binding. I would use the Accu-feed foot for everything but maybe lettering, because it has to move back and forth a lot. Satin stitches, depending. And then anything that has to like move side to side or moves backwards a lot, it can be a little bit rough on the foot. But I've done a lot of different stitches with the Accu-feed foot without any problems. So if your machine doesn't come with a walking foot, I highly recommend investing in one. It's just something that it's one of the feet that people actually find themselves needing, and it is a useful tool in my opinion. So if you're going to splurge on any extra presser foot for your machine, I recommend a walking foot, or if you're lucky enough to have a Janome, they'll probably include this Accu-feed foot. And if you thought that wasn't enough, they actually have a secondary version of the Accu-feed foot, but this one's called the high performance foot. And I can't tell if mine's broken, to be honest. I used it once and like my machine got all messed up. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that or not. Anyway, so you'll notice that this is a more streamlined version of the Accu-feed foot, and this particular foot is designed for bag making, for heavy duty projects, for garment construction, like you're working on like a medium weight leather, you're working on lots of layers of denim. If you're making purses, handbags, like with like multiple layers of things, this is a foot you want to use, and you want to use the specific needle plate with it. There is a HP needle plate. I don't happen to have one. Maybe I do somewhere. Maybe in my bag of tricks over here. Or you could use this straight stitch needle plate, but the HP plate is specifically designed to go with the HP foot. And it's the same idea as the Accu-feed foot. It's just a lot more streamlined. And so it's great for getting in those narrow crevices and those small seams. And so it does have a zipper sole to go with it. So again, when you're making bags, it's nice to have that. Otherwise, it would be sort of the standard foot. And again, you can tell the machine really wants you to use this for specific stitches. Really, it's just going to be for your straight stitches. I would not recommend this one. I don't even think you can do a zigzag stitch with the HP plate on. So this is really just going to be for straight seams and things like that. But it's when you're working with those thick layers and you need to be able to kind of really get up close and things like that. That's your HP foot. And let's see. Okay, so another foot that happens to come with the Skyline S9. This is an embroidery foot. So if your machine has embroidery capabilities, your embroidery foot will probably look a lot different than this, to be honest. Again, this is another one of those feet that Janome makes very specifically. But for the most part, like a metal foot that doesn't have any spring action to it with its own separate ankle and things like that, that's probably what you're going to be seeing. So that's the P foot. And if you watched my machine embroidery video, you'll know you need that for machine embroidery. You'll also know that there's a couple other feet options for the machine embroidery. You could also use these for quilting as well, free motion quilting. They're smaller, they're clear. I'm not sure what the advantage would be to use these guys, to be honest. I've never really utilized them before. So if I find that out, I might do a separate video, but just know that you do have those as an option. And then one more foot that I kind of forgot about, no lie. This is a Echo quilting foot. So with this particular one, you would want to use it with your regular ankle. And this is really great if you want to do Echo designs and things like that. If you're going to be doing circles, if you're going to be doing lots of lines that are a certain distance from each other, this foot is nice because it has all these red guidelines, all these markers, and then otherwise it's clear, so it makes it very easy to see where you're going. And then I also like, because it's like a flat disc, as you're doing the free motion quilting, this kind of helps kind of push down on some of the threads and things like that. So if you're doing pebbling or loop-de-loops, this is a really great foot to have. And again, this is usually like an extra optional accessory. I don't know that the Skyline would have come with this new in a box. I bought my machine secondhand, so there's a possibility that whoever owned it first bought that separate. But I also really wouldn't be surprised if Janome was like, here you go, another foot. Alright guys, so those are all the presser feet that I have for my Janome. Again, I just want to reiterate, you want to make sure you know the make and the model of your machine, because the ankle that goes on there is going to be a lot different depending on what machine you have. Just for like a quick example, this is a rolled hem foot for my Singer 301A, my 1956 Singer, and you can see it's a completely different style ankle altogether. So it really does make a difference, the make and model of your machine. And I hope y'all learned something. If you have a foot that you have a question about, let me know. Hopefully while I'm editing this, I found the buttonhole foot. But alright, y'all have a crafty day.